Hello and welcome. You're watching QTV and you are watching The Week in Review. I'm your host, Ade Darami, and across the table from me, I have friend and colleague Momodu Mbodj. Mr. Mbodj, the boring, usual welcome to the program.
Yes, I think it's good sometimes to be boring, but predictable.
Indeed.
It's all right.
Indeed. Thank you. And to you, the viewers, thank you for tuning in once again. And so on this week's program, we have, as usual, 10 stories that we've decided need some further investigation, and we go into them in some detail. And some stories we spend a bit more time on than others. First up, 6 state-owned enterprises went to the State House to present dividend checks to His Excellency the President. Apparently, it's the first time that 6 have done it at one go. I'm not sure how significant that is. Also, the National Water and Electricity Company have said that the power supply has improved across the greater Banjul area. I hear you groan. We'll get into that. National Roads Authority, where rain season is upon us, although here in Greater Banjul, I think we've only had about 3 days of rain since the beginning of June. And we spoke to them about their preparedness for the rains because sometimes the roads can become actually impassable during the rain season. Also, this weekend is when we launch the Farato National Emergency Treatment Center. That's center with a TRE at the end, by the way. Also, National Human Rights Commission Chair has urged, yet another person urging political leaders to mind their conduct and over election engagement as we come closer and closer to the presidential election. Also, Economic Community of West African States. They called together the permanent reps for a series of meetings, and I followed it, and it was quite interesting because they actually went so far as to say that unless we change, we face an existential threat. So that one was quite an interesting one to observe. Also, Mile 2 prison, we go there and we see whether it's still about punishment or rehabilitation. We'll tell you all about that. And PURA, Public Utilities Regulatory Authority, they've signed an MOU with their Senegal counterpart. What's that about? Well, it's about digital cooperation. And also the Day of the Seafarer was commemorated on the 25th of June. Lots of our stuff comes via the seaborne routes. We import almost everything, and so for us this wasn't just another day, a UN day to be commemorated. It meant something to us. And for our final story, we go to the United Kingdom, where Keir Starmer, the British Prime Minister, announced his resignation after months and months of pressure. So these are the stories. So let's get things off and running, shall we? The first one is the first one I mentioned, that 6 state-owned enterprises went to the State House to present checks in a grand ceremony to His Excellency the President. And what were these checks? They were dividends. Have a look, have a listen.
President Barrow presided over the dividend signing ceremony, where 6 SOEs collectively handed over $107 million in interim dividends to the government of the Gambia.
The first time in the history of this nation, we are gathered here not to discuss how government may once again bail out our state-owned enterprises, but to receive dividends from 5 of them. The governance improvements, cost rationalization measures, and operational reforms you have championed are tangibly formidable.
The President also addressed ongoing concerns over electricity supply, acknowledging the frustrations faced by households and businesses across the country.
The government taxed the electricity issue facing households and businesses across the country with utmost seriousness, and we are firmly bent on addressing them in the shortest time possible.
Mr. Mbodj, His Excellency the President said it there. When we think of state-owned enterprises, we tend to think of bailouts. And 2023, 2.6 billion, 2024,
Yes.
2.6 billion loss. However, by 2025, they turned that around to a net profit of $2.5 billion, by the way, in case anybody wonders
Absolutely.
which currency we're talking about. And now we had these 6. I'm still struggling as to the significance of having the 6 of them present in one go, and then it being described as the first time ever. I guess nothing stopped anybody to gather them all to present their checks at one time. So I didn't get the significance of that. 137 million, still a drop in the ocean relatively, sounds like a big figure. But nonetheless, a lot was made of it, grand ceremony, and His Excellency the President, of course, he attributed it mainly to reforms brought in by his administration.
Absolutely. The fact that there were 6, well, one can fact check that, as you said, or not. It's all very interesting. But the aggregated report of the State-Owned Enterprises Commission,
yeah.
That's it. So it stated that quite clearly there. Now, for us, it will be now, why? Why the turnaround?
Yeah.
Well, we are being told that because of the reforms.
Indeed.
That has sort of brought about operational efficiency.
Yeah, performance contracts.
Performance contracts, and over a short period, really, they've made this major turnaround.
Sure.
But again, you look at all the sources as well. There are all the sources commenting on this.
it, yeah.
They're saying that, well, that is partly so. There's been government subsidies.
Yes, indeed.
That's all included.
Yeah,
There's been donor support.
Yeah.
There's been sort of debt settlement
yes.
somewhere.
Well, this is it.
And
yes.
even foreign exchange losses.
Right.
So that's really the context. Not necessarily operational efficiency.
Quite.
That kind of quick turnaround.
Yeah, quite.
And the fact that this is the first time.
Yeah.
I will at least need a few examples to actually say that there has been a turnaround.
Yeah, quite.
I am not sure whether just once is sufficient
To call
really,
it that, yeah.
for us really to make that conclusion that we've made a definitive turnaround.
Yeah, sure. Because the State-Owned Enterprises Act in 2023 brought into being a commission, and the commission was given the remit of having oversight over these, and part of it is being attributed to the oversight role that this commission is playing, and the commission chair was there. And you do wonder, well, is it that they are strict about these contracts, about these, performance contracts? We all remember the threat to penalize, public sector workers if certain of these. It never came to anything. It was a threat, and you do wonder whether that threat was enough to kind of be a wake-up call to people who work in these sectors to say, well, and of course he had to mention the electricity because NAWEC were one of the bodies that appeared at the State House.
Yes. So it may very well be. But that is not the only factor. This is really what we are talking about here.
Indeed.
There are many factors, as it were, responsible, why this is the way it is now.
Quite.
But the idea that from this single sample, we can say that there has been a turnaround. No, we cannot make that. Logically, one really cannot make that.
Yes.
All we know that this time, this is what happened.
Sure.
And they're claiming operational efficiency. Others are saying that is only partly true.
Indeed.
So one accepts, but they must also concede that there are other factors that contributed to this.
Indeed.
And this is important so that we wouldn't relax too much on our institutional reform.
Well, indeed.
We've seen what has happened with NAWEC suddenly.
Yeah, quite.
So when you haven't got the reform, you haven't really done what you should do infrastructurally.
Sure.
You are not going to consistently get the results. And then you'll end up with egg all over your face.
Indeed.
That is the problem.
That is the big problem. And in case anybody's wondering, I was trying to memorize the 6, but I didn't. So it's Gambia Ports Authority, Gambia National Petroleum Corporation, Civil Aviation Authority, Gambia Publishing and Printing.
Yes.
They come up with 5 million. National Water and Electricity, NAWEC, and GRTS.
Yes.
So those are the 6, and very interesting it was too. But as you say, I think one needs a longer period of assessment before one can make bold claims that the reforms, because yes, the commission was established in 2023, but was it operational from the get-go? or did it take a year or two before it became operational, before it started to exert its influence over these state-owned enterprises? These are some of the things I think we have to assess.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
But the president here has really helped us, really, for the sake of this argument, this discussion. This is the first time that they've done it.
Yeah, quite.
I accept that.
Yeah, quite.
But what can I tease? What can I extrapolate from just the first?
Yeah, quite.
You know, maybe we've made it significant because the way they framed it,
Yes.
this is a milestone turnaround, as it were.
Yeah.
Well, I'm not so sure about that because I've read all the reports. They're saying that, yes, the operational efficiency, you know, you have to give them their due. There's been some, but there are other factors as well.
Yeah.
There's been a World Bank financial assistance in
well,
this
that's
area.
right.
So, and other things as well. So combined, this is what is. So we will see in the coming years whether this was a turnaround or not. We simply do not know.
I was going to say in the coming year, because if you look at the fact that another story we're doing the Day of the Seafarer, and I mentioned in the introduction about how much a lot of what we use here is imported, a lot of these entities actually import a lot of what they, and that impact has probably not been seen or felt yet.
Yes.
And that could be quite significant.
Oh, absolutely. Because one of the reasons, remember, especially with the NAWEC bit, we'll go to the NAWEC bit, but fuel shortages, you know, that's about transport. Sea transport. So that will be one of the factors.
Sure.
So what has happened there?
Yeah, sure.
Well, we'll get to the NAWEC story afterwards.
Thank you for that. And as Mr. Mboy says, we'll get to the NAWEC story afterwards. And so because many of us in the Greater Banjul area, myself accepted, had been suffering power cuts for a good number of months, 2.5, maybe 3 months of severe power cuts, let's say. We summoned, or we asked, or we invited, whichever way you want to see it, NAWEC PRO Buba Baji to come in and speak to us. And here's some of what he had to say.
I don't know if I would remember all of it, but I know Tranquil is one of the feeder. We have the Nemakunku feeder. We also have the Bohol feeder. The Bohol feeder will supply from Sukuta traffic light towards the Logic before Brusubi, going down to the Brufoots. The Tranquil area will supply the Keriserin, the Bijilo, the Tranquil itself, you know, those are very, very big. Brusubi 1 and 2, phase 1 and 2, you know, including the Jab 1, Jab 2. Jabang is divided into 3. We call it Jab 1, Jab 2, and Jab 3. So those ones are also under that load setting. There are works to make sure that that gap is also closed, because remember, we have 2 engines that are on overhaul at Kutu. We also have 2 at Brikam. If we bring all those ones added to this, definitely we are okay. But as of now, yes, we are out of the crisis. In fact, some will not even notice it, that there is load shedding. On behalf of the management, we are saying our apologies to the entire nation, especially during the crisis, what they have undergone. We realized it, we know it, and we felt it, and we know we could have done better, but you know, that's the point that we did not, and beyond our own control, and then that's it. But we are saying we are sorry.
Mr. Mboj, we might as well move on to the next story. He's apologized. I think that's settled everything, hasn't it? But on a more serious note, we heard there that the crisis is over. I mean, you live in one of the areas that he mentioned there that had been impacted, and I know this is not scientific, but in the last week or so, what's the situation as far as you've seen? Has there been an improvement?
As far as you've experienced it? Oh, absolutely.
All right.
Like, there is no denying that.
Okay.
In fact, from that interview, my sense was the crisis has eased. Perhaps we've peaked.
Yep.
You know what I mean? But it's not over.
It's not over.
It's not over, because they mentioned, I think, Greater Banjul area, peak demand, 95 megawatts. Now they produce between 88 and 90. So you've got 5 to 7 megawatts still not being provided.
Sounds small, but it's quite significant.
It is quite significant in power terms, actually. So that is important. That was why he said, some will not notice.
Yes,
and I said, sotto voce, but others will.
What?
That's what of thing.
But others will. And for those who will notice, it's been quite a difficult
That's it.
time. Yeah.
So, and we got that in Kotu and Brikama,
That's
the
right.
maintenance is still
That's
on,
right.
really.
Yes.
That was the reason for maybe the 5 to 7 megawatts deficit,
Indeed.
isn't it?
That's right.
So, but that's strange now. It seems that we're virtually running without any reserve.
Well, this is it, because apparently 60 megawatts that they were getting from OMVG was somehow lost, and you know, sort of imported from the OMVG project, and something to do with the external grid disconnections. I found this only because I went on an international site to check, because I've always been kind of curious. I said, okay, Gambia. I just typed in Gambia has been suffering. You know, has the OMVG project got anything to do with this? And it said, in fact, there'd been a 60% loss through that. 60 megawatt, I beg your pardon.
60 megawatts, yes.
Loss through the OMVG project, and this had impacted. But I don't recall seeing or hearing that in any of the literature or any of the interviews that came from NAWEC. It surprised me, and that quote was only from the last 3-4 days, by the way. So it seems there are a lot of factors, and maybe we're not being given the full picture as to what all these factors are.
I suspect that we'll be interviewing them because we need to know, because earlier in that interview we also talk about lessons learned, which is very important, because if you're going to avoid this sort of occurrence happening again, then you have to implement whatever lessons are important, what lessons were learned, and then how do you redress the shortcomings. Because what we were told, there were really 4 main reasons why the crisis, wasn't it, really? They mentioned reduced imports, that's the OMVG bit. They mentioned maintenance, which is still going on.
Supply delays because of maintenance.
Because of maintenance. So the Kotu Brikama, they're really still working on that. They also mentioned spare parts delays. Have they arrived? Nothing was mentioned. They just said the general improvement, but specificities, nobody went into specificities. And there was also another one, fuel shortages. So what has happened? What has moved on there? So what's going on? So
and there was another surge in demand.
Surge in demand.
They said there'd been a surge in demand.
But coming from where? I mean, you factor into your whole thinking. Well, we know that our fertility rate is 3.6, 3 point something percent. As a government institution, I have to take that into account. These are the data. This is sort of data I use in the way we plan, especially with stuff like such utilities like electricity. If population is going to grow, is in that part of the plan? But this is the key. He said that they will strengthen the contingency plans. I said, we are beginning to say things. The contingency wasn't good at all. If it existed at all, actually.
At one point I said there wasn't a plan B.
Sort of. So what was going on there? But fine. Things are improving. We'll see what will happen next. And then when he said, that one really got me thinking, oh, come on, Mr. Badji, we shouldn't politicize this and that sort of thing. When everybody knows that providing public services, social services, that's one of the reasons why you put in a government, isn't it really? So operationally, that's for you guys, for NAWEC.
That's right.
But that's one aspect of providing such services. Accountability is also political.
Well, indeed.
Government owns NAWEC, government appoints management, government finances major investments, government subsidies keep tariffs below full recovery. So it is very political, sir.
There's a reason why it's called a state-owned enterprise.
There's a reason why it's called a state-owned enterprise. So we all stay within our lane. We talk about operational matters that rightfully they should. But the political aspect is very much goes to the heart of this. So maybe what you can ask for is that let's use facts, let us be reasonable, let us not be too emotional about these things. Yes, anybody would welcome that in a discussion. This is a national discussion, so you avoid these things that will just sort of divide us instead of providing understanding.
Sure. So in closing, there's been the backlash, the likes of Gala taking to the streets to protest, and we've been out ourselves to speak to people who own shops and businesses, and they've spoken about the economic toll that this has taken. And I guess we live in a country where there's very little likelihood of them getting any kind of compensation for what has happened. They'll just have to kind of suck it up and put up with it.
I brought this point up when I discussed it with Buba Baji on Drive Time.
Right, yeah.
Have you considered some kind of compensation for the economic loss? Perhaps my question should have been, have you made any assessment? Who has made any assessment of the economic loss of this period? Because you know that in other countries they do stuff like that.
I tried to find that. I couldn't.
Exactly.
Yeah,
have you made any assessment of it? I mean, come on.
Yeah,
all over the country, everybody was complaining. You have the commercial people, and what about ordinary folks? They said, normally, I buy meat, I buy all sorts of things, put in my fridge, my freezer, but I couldn't do that.
Yeah.
So it's been a heavy toll on people, and really one must acknowledge that, really.
Indeed. Thank you for that, Mr. Ambosh. Story number 3, very different story. But it's, again, it speaks to the matter of preparedness. National Road Authority, we had them here. Rainy season, as I said, is upon us. In the Greater Banjul area, certainly where we are, where the office is and where most of us live who work here, we've not had that much rain, but the little rain we did have, 3 days of it, spread out, was enough to cause quite a bit of disruption. So we wanted to know, how prepared were they? Here's some of what we learned.
Really, like we do over the years, we do clean the drains in preparation for the rainy season. We do open up the waterways, we do open up the outfalls in preparation for the rainy season. So when it rains, water will flow off on our on the roads and then naturally discharge into the natural waterways. Anti-littering in the drains. That's one of our biggest challenges right now. Already our drainage system is it's not like it covers everywhere. So the little that we have, we need to maintain it. The drainages are not meant for littering. They're meant to be kept clean. But unfortunately, we spend so much resources trying to clean this thing, and this is a preventable action. When rainy season approaching, it's your responsibility to make sure your vehicle tires are in line, your wipes are in line. The NRA is doing what it should. We're keeping the road clean and dry. We're having the signboards. When they're faded, we even do renew it during the rainy season to make sure it's very visible. You know, we cut down grasses along the side of the road, open it up so there'll be visibility. But again, it comes back to the human behavior on these roads. It's a high contributing factor to these road traffic accidents.
So you have the Roads Authority, but as we heard there, there's also human behavior. And just literally before we came to the studio, I took a stroll down Kairaba Avenue in the direction of Alliance Francaise and walked back. I just wanted to check, because that interview was conducted on Kairaba Avenue, and I can tell you the drains are heaving with rubbish. So it's a combination of the Roads Authority and the municipality who should clear these drains, but nobody has to take my word for it. Just stroll down Kairaba Avenue and you'll be horrified. And so the authority are doing their bit, and she did make a plea to the public in that interview to say, look, do your part as well. You can't just leave it to us. Mr. Ambosh, what's your take on that?
Exactly, the framing. It was both an engineering issue and a behavioral issue.
Indeed.
Really.
Indeed.
Because really they understand that what they're doing right now is just dealing with the symptom.
Yeah, sure.
Cleaning, they do it all the time, regularly, don't they?
Quite.
You know, the waterways, the outfalls, they call it, and all the rest of it. But they acknowledge that there are studies being done to see how they can change the design.
This is it.
So that tells you the infrastructural shortcomings of this.
Yeah, well, indeed.
Yes. So now, with behavior, human behavior, what can you do about that? That is why we are told that sort of just asking people to change their behavior, that is not policy.
Yeah, go on.
In every area, be it the way we drive, be it anything that we do, that is a much slower process,
indeed,
isn't it?
Yes.
Is it the sort of thing that maybe schools can take care
Yeah,
of, you know,
quite,
when they're quite young.
Yeah,
And the homes, in our
Yeah.
homes, what
Yeah.
behavior. But how has it come to this?
yeah, quite.
Maybe that is an acknowledgement that these institutions have really failed. Because the way we do it now, I mean, I grew up in Banjul, we all were conscious of this sort of thing. We're not allowed to throw things anywhere, not litter. And then you had people who would go around constantly cleaning up. So there was that sense.
Yeah.
But it has been in many ways lost.
Yeah,
You know what I mean?
and you know, as I was driving with our colleague Alaji Ba, right in front of us, somebody threw something, and he said, "Oh, I almost want to get down and scream at that person." Well, of course, you drive on. But you know, so there's been routine maintenance. They've said there's been new infrastructure. You mentioned something about, you know, our work is to try and keep the pavements dry. We don't have that many pavements, one has to say. But I didn't want to push it too much. But the culverts that are there, they're not really significantly robust to withstand significant downpours. And when we've had them, it's just tilted onto the road, not helped by the fact that, of course, people use them as dustbins as well. So
they acknowledge that. The current drainage system's got limits.
Quite.
There are things that we must do to it. So perhaps what the statement there really didn't address was that, okay, now what areas, how much have you done, how many kilometers of drains have you cleaned?
Quite.
Have we got enough funding for it? What have you identified, as it were, isn't it?
Sure.
So which flood-prone areas have been prioritized? You see, as a journalist, we write these things. Okay, this is what you're doing, so let's go into the details of what you're doing.
Sure.
I'm sure, perhaps in the common days, either on drive time or anywhere else, we'll go into the details, as it were, of what actually is being done and where. Because everywhere you look, is the manpower there? How long would it take? The rains are up on us.
Yeah, indeed.
Is this sort of the appropriate time to begin? I don't know, stuff like that. So just go into details and they will let us know. They are the people with technical knowledge, as it were. We just ask general questions, you know, as always.
Tease the questions out of them.
We represent the voice of ignorance.
Yes, absolutely, absolutely. Thank you for that, Mr. Mboj. Thank you. Story number 4, we go to Farato, where we're about to launch the National Emergency Treatment Center, a really, really grand building. And here's some of what we found when we went to have a look ahead of the inauguration.
Nearly 5 years later, the vision has taken shape. This Saturday, the 27th of June 2026, the National Emergency Treatment Center will be officially inaugurated by the President, marking a significant milestone in the Gambia's healthcare transformation. The government of the Gambia and World Bank funded facility houses a network of specialized labs that health experts such as Modu Lamin Sane of the Serial Lab and Modu Koli of the Hematology Lab described as the front line of disease detection and surveillance.
We do serological testings, but then we never had a machine that tests for allergies, right? What you are allergic to, what the body is allergic to.
So the chemistry analyzer helps us in the main infections like the LFTs. LFTs are we call liver function tests, and it can also do kidney function tests.
This is an automated bacterial identification machine that we have never had in the history of our healthcare system. So it's a machine that can identify bacterial pathogens.
For years, many Gambians requiring advanced diagnostic services had to travel abroad at significant cost. Here, MRI, CT scan, and X-ray services will now be available under one place. The center also includes a 20-bed intensive care unit equipped to manage critically ill patients requiring specialized monitoring and life support interventions.
Mr. Mboj, we went there in January of 2022 when construction work was just starting. The foundation stone had been laid in, I think, December of 2021, matter of days before the election. I seem to recall, I think only 4 days before the election, and of course it wasn't a campaign tool at all. Of course it wasn't. But nonetheless, it's now built, $26.5 million. World Bank and Government of the Gambia funded. And our colleague Aliou Cisse, who went there, even as a layman, was quite impressed. And of course, the future is this is going to be the biggest hospital, 1,500 bed capacity hospital. But launched this weekend, or inaugurated this weekend.
Absolutely. And we were kicked into action by the COVID-19 experience that we saw here.
Yeah.
So really, this is really one phase, as it were, of a much larger, and they're calling it Health City.
Yeah, indeed, yes.
An extraordinary, as you mentioned, 1,500
bed
health city, which will incorporate what? They've got a list, National Emergency Treatment Center, National Public Health Laboratory, National Blood Transfusion Service, biomedical engineering facilities, and all sorts of things.
National Blood Transfusion Service.
Absolutely. So yes, for a very long time, isn't it? If you needed specialized care, you had to go outside and all sorts of things, all the long waits, overcrowding, Edward Francis Moore. Everybody knows that. That's absolutely perfect.
Yeah, quite.
But you see, now the work begins.
Indeed.
Inauguration. Oh, that's step one.
Just the beginning. You weren't there, but you may as well have been eavesdropping on the conversation. So when our colleague Aliou Cisse came back with that report and the extra footage that we didn't even or could not use in the report, the first thing somebody said was, let's go there in a year's time and see if it still looks as clean, sparkling and wonderful. There was a cynicism about it, because as you rightly say, now the work begins.
Absolutely.
It's all right to have the structure, the facility, but what about the capacity to fill it, to man it, to run it, and to maintain it?
Absolutely. Do you know that Lee Kuan Yew sort of chided, if you like, Kwame Nkrumah. You remember Nkrumah was bring here the political state and everything is fine. Said, no, sir, that was the beginning. Really, acquiring the political state, that was the easy part. So this is in building these things. They may seem very expensive, absolutely, very difficult, putting all of that. But funnily enough, that's the easy part. Making it work is really what we need to, that's the key now for some, with journalists. Are all clinical staff recruited? Because if you wanted to start working, these are some of the questions, obviously, people will start asking.
These were some of the points that were put to the health minister who went with them, but he wasn't, because the inauguration was at the weekend, he wanted to kind of wait until he revealed all. But these were some of the things that they wanted to know.
Are ICU specialists available?
Yeah.
Are all diagnostic machines being commissioned? That sort of thing, because many reports will tell you in Africa, many hospitals across open before every service is immediately available. So what is immediately available?
Indeed.
And then we go on. So questions, specifics again, we have to go into the specifics, as it were, with this one in the coming days and weeks.
This is it. And I know it's not the Gambia, but I know certainly of a Sierra Leone hospital at a place called Laka that was built by the former vice president in memory of his wife, who had been a nurse. And we went there, it looked fantastic. And I went back a year later and it was closed. And I said, what happened? They said, we didn't have the trained staff to run it. And this is not a made up story. Solomon Berewa is the vice president I'm referring to, and people can look it up online.
I remember that name at Forever College.
Right. So, yes, indeed. Yes. And so these are the things, and these are the questions we need to ask. We have the facility, but is it fully equipped, and is it fully capacitized in terms of who's going to be able to run the machinery, fix it if anything gets broken, and so on. And those are the difficult questions that we need.
After the ribbon cutting ceremony. And it is important that we say these things because we want this facility to work.
Quite. It's not that we're being negative.
No, you want it to work in the long term. We have seen what's been our shortcomings, what's been the bane, as it were, of our development, really, the sustainability and all these sort of things. So it is important that now it is new, we start asking questions, paying attention to make sure that it works, the way it should. Do your maintenance when you should. We've seen the problem with maintenance all over. So this is it. Fantastic. the government went through with it. Yes, we had the World Bank funding.
That's right.
But fine, that was the willingness to do it, and it is here.
Yeah, quite.
So,
let's keep
one feather, one feather in your cap.
Yes, indeed.
Government.
And we will keep a close eye on this one. Thank you for that. And we mentioned earlier, talking about NAWEC, and it was said, don't politicize. So the National Human Rights Commission Chair, Emmanuel Daniel Diouf, spoke to us and the rest of the media. And yet again, he kind of hammered home the message that he had for political leaders in the Gambia. What was that message? I won't spoil it for you. Have a listen to what he had to say.
Elections are a constitutional right and a fundamental pillar of democracy, providing citizens with the opportunity to choose their leaders. They are often marked by increased political activities, public debates, and nationwide campaigns as parties seek the support of voters. On December 5th, 2026, Gambians will go to the polls to elect the country's next president, who will be entrusted with leading the affairs of the nation for a 5-year term.
Because it's during elections that we talk about freedom of speech, freedom of assembly. But what is important is that we go through this process in a way where we do it in accordance with the law. And I think this is very important. And our concern in the Gambia, especially now, with the advent of social media, is the issue of hate speech. And I think this is the concern of most people, is that, yes, we will have our messages, we'll have the fanfare, we'll have the drums, but does it have to come with insult? Our job is to remind them of the need to carry on the process peacefully. Already, all of them have signed the IEC Code of Conduct. In 2021, there was the Janjambure Peace Accord, and we keep on reminding them. You see, politicians are the key in all this thing, especially the leadership, executive. If you have people saying horrible things, fanning flames of hate speech or disunity, we believe that it is the leadership of those political parties who should come out and condemn them.
Come out and condemn them, rein them in. I know if one has lived in the West and you come to live in Africa, you realize that our politicians, from our presidents on down, they're a lot less thick-skinned than their Western counterparts. And so I've been watching with some of my team stuff that Americans have been saying, for example, about President Donald Trump, and like, oh my God, such an insult. He wouldn't be allowed to do that in Africa. So I think there's a kind of context that we see in a lot of African countries, and that's why we heard. But, yet again, he's somebody who's mentioned hate speech, of which really there has not been a lot of it. There have been the odd irrational statement, yes, but that doesn't ramp up to the level of hate speech. And you said it yourself when we had this discussion on both here and on this morning, that we need to be careful when we use the term, what we mean. And in fact, I would say we abuse the term, actually. But I mean, yet again, we had Emmanuel Daniel Diouf cautioning the leaders of political parties.
Absolutely, we are just so thin-skinned. We have really a traditional view of leadership and the relationship with us. We are still really subjects.
The kind of deferential.
We want that. So in many ways, maybe imaginatively, we haven't moved from being a subject to being a citizen.
Indeed.
These are two different things. Europe had that background in their history.
Indeed.
But with the rise of democracy, and now you're having presidents, not
kings and queens. Yeah,
or where you have kings and queens, they've been emasculated. So now true power is with the political. So we are having to make that transfer, even though we pretend we are like, we are different, we have different values. No, that is not true. We're just creating a narrative to suit us. It's just a modern narrative. In a generation or two, they would come and, another generation say, oh no, not in my name. So these things are narratives are constantly shifting.
Well, indeed.
So we are still at that level. So that's why we are thin-skinned. But this is it, especially with now social media. Yeah, with us, QTV, well, we have an address. You can come and see us. And with the papers and others, they have an address. You can come and get us. So in the end, especially laws regarding this. So you're going to have a few.
Yeah, quite.
You know what I mean? The obvious ones, the easy ones.
Yeah.
Yes, you will implement on them, but the vast number you cannot.
Yeah, quite.
Tolerance has always been, well, that capacity to tolerate insult.
Well, indeed.
That's really the reality of it.
Yeah.
It's not going to go away.
Yeah,
it doesn't matter what the chairperson of National Human Rights Council says, or commission, sorry.
Yeah,
it doesn't matter how much it says. We know it, we see it. So let us talk in more realistic terms, what is achievable.
He used the phrase, don't inflame. I guess that's kind of what he's, yes.
So with the politicians, exactly.
Yeah, quite.
What is it that you can do? Be more responsible.
Yeah, quite.
If anybody speaks in your name,
yeah, quite.
no, distance yourself from that. So these are the things that are achievable, really.
Yeah.
Let us focus on that. Main parties, the main players, that's to take responsibility and see what we can do.
Yeah.
But for the rest of us, now we are in social media. Really, I have to swallow it, as we used to say. Sometimes somebody will say hurtful things, but you are beyond reach.
That's right.
This is the new world of social media. So let us be realistic. What is achievable? What is it that we can do? We focus on that rather than crying for the moon and then we wouldn't do what we're supposed to do.
Thank you for that, Mr. Mbod. That takes us, as that was story number 5, it takes us to the commercial break. Join us after the break when, guess what, we'll have 5 more stories. Don't go away. Join us after the break. Hello and welcome back after that break. Assuming you're joining us because you were with us in the first half. If not, and you're joining us at this point, you've missed 5 good stories. But as usual, if you're a usual viewer, you know I'm going to say we still have 5 really good stories to come. Don't believe me? Hey, check this one out. Number 6, ECOWAS. The Committee of Permanent Reps, they met recently in Benin. And as I said at the top of the program, I watched the deliberations and it was very interesting. Here's a snippet of some of what went down.
I want to warmly commend the theme of this year's meeting, the ECOWAS Compact on the Future of Regional Integration, reflections on the role of the Permanent Representatives Committee in the future of ECOWAS. West Africa's future is not one of decline, but of possibility if we act with courage, unity, and moral clarity. End of quote. It is therefore imperative that this retreat focuses on how, together, we can reflect on building an ECOWAS that is agile, responsive, and capable of delivering tangible benefits to over 400 million citizens that we serve.
The retreat brought together ambassadors from ECOWAS member states, senior commission officials, and representatives of the government of Benin to review a draft pact that aims to redefine regional integration for the coming decades. Described as a fundamental reset of the West African integration project, the proposed pact seeks to transform ECOWAS into what leaders described as an ECOWAS of the people, in line with the organization's Vision 2050. The document is the outcome of consultations with experts, civil society, professional groups, and the West African diaspora. Permanent representatives examined the draft and proposed amendments before it is submitted to heads of state at a future
summit. Now, Mr. Mboj, we heard there about resetting the integration project. And as I said, I watched the deliberations and it was quite interesting because some of the delegates there were saying, you know what, we need to wake up to the fact that we've tried a lot of things. And if you go on their Facebook page, every day they are posting about stuff that they're doing in all the various countries of the region. But what they were saying is, if we don't wake up, this thing will dissolve. It won't just be alliance of Sahel states that will break away. Others might say, what's this got to do with me? And so they came up with this pact and compact, and it says we want to move from ECOWAS being a state-centric elite-driven political bloc into an ECOWAS of a people designed to deliver tangible benefits like mobility, security, and digital connectivity. Mr. Mboj, you could take anyone. Let's take mobility. How difficult we and others have found it just to move around within ECOWAS bloc, even in 2026.
Absolutely, Adi, but even before that, all that report, they're going to have to submit to the heads of state. That has always been the problem, hasn't it?
Quite.
Then you'll see what these heads of state will do.
Yeah.
Adi, an ECOWAS of the people, well, that means I'll give the ECOWAS Parliament considerable power. And then we all vote for people into the Parliament, isn't it? And then the laws will be binding on all of us.
Quite.
It isn't like that.
It's not like that.
States, individual states, chief executives are unwilling to cede a little bit of sovereignty.
This is true. Yes, quite.
So anything these people say, reports and all of that, merely advisory.
Yeah, quite. Because
really
they don't want to
what it
cede
is.
sovereignty
Don't
either
want
to the Parliament or to the court.
The courts.
And if we, so how serious are we about this project?
Structurally, it's meaningless.
Yeah,
We've
quite.
seen how the EEC was formed.
Yeah, quite.
And then from the EEC to EU.
Yeah, quite.
So also all states, all members, they had to cede quite a bit of their sovereignty for the whole thing to work.
Indeed.
We cannot do that. So all of these things is a talking shop, I think.
Yeah.
Maybe in some areas, I don't know, in innovation, we can collaborate.
Yeah, quite.
Youth activities, we can collaborate.
Yeah, sure.
Maybe there are certain areas that may perhaps in civil society will lead that, not government.
Well,
so civil society, we can take the space and be collaborating in all sorts of areas.
Yes.
Perhaps that cumulatively, who knows? In a generation, you will have presidents who said, actually, we need to do this. But they must grow up in this kind of thing, isn't
Well, this is it. And what's been interesting this week, as I said, I became kind of obsessed with this particular summit. I thought, okay, let me see what else they're doing. So they've got things called ECOWAS clubs in schools.
Exactly.
In different countries.
That's exactly
where
my point.
they had people for the, so they did Benin, they did Nigeria, and they did where else? Senegal, of course, and in Senegal, and they posted the videos of what they did in these schools, and they've done one in the Gambia, which I wasn't even aware of because they didn't invite us, the media, and it was about to getting these people involved in thinking about ECOWAS as being something that they own, that belongs to them. As you say, give it to the people. Can we vote people into an ECOWAS parliament that has kind of jurisdiction and so on? Those are the things that matter.
I didn't know that.
Yeah.
But when you look at all the parallels, people think that the EEC was born in 1953, something like that. Somebody said, no, the idea of Europe, the idea of belonging, you will find in the works of Erasmus, in literature. That's really where the identity began. So politics caught on very late, but culture had done the background work already. So with organizations like that, you need that background cultural element. That is why we've been unable to move. You just can't impose structures, ideas, whatever. Whereas the culture isn't like that. So it's been very slow actually in moving. But that's really the base.
Yes, indeed.
Senghor knew that.
Senghor knew that, and if anybody's watching, you'll be seeing some of those reports about the work they're doing in schools here on QTV. But thank you for that, Mr. Mboj. A very, very different topic now for item number 7. Mile 2 prison here in the Gambia, previously associated with quite kind of harsh conditions, even human rights abuses. It's been trying to get itself a kind of makeover in terms of how it operates and what it does with the inmates who were there. And we went to find out recently some of what was going on there. Have a look and have a listen.
Since the 2016 democratic transition, the Gambia Prison Service has introduced a series of reforms focused on transforming the prison system from one centered solely on confinement to one that promotes rehabilitation and integration. Through education, vocational skills training, and psychological support, inmates are being equipped with opportunities to rebuild their lives and successfully return to society. These rehabilitation efforts were recently highlighted during the Eid al-Adha celebrations, where inmates shared a special meal and enjoyed performances from Gambian artists. The event, sponsored by Jollof Care and supported by renowned Chef Bojang, offered inmates a moment of hope, identity and human connection. Rehabilitation efforts also include education, psychological support with special attention given to young offenders at the juvenile wing in Joshua.
We believe that part of our reintegration program is also so that at the time they leave the confinement of the prisons, they are better persons, they are better transformed, so that they go back to society. Because some of them, they are trained as cooks there at the time, because they are also attached at the kitchen, where they were also doing providing food services for their fellow inmates.
Mr. Mboj, as I said, our colleague Ezo Nyasi particularly, I think he was first contacted by Jollof Care to say we're doing some things at the prison, inmates are making handicrafts and they're going to be having their own stands at a fair. I thought, what? And sure enough, there they were, and we saw some of those in the report. We also heard about the education. And as I said, it's been trying to transform itself, and the image people get now when they hear Mile 2 is not what it was, say, 10, 15 years ago. Very, very different.
Yes, and I think Inside Training Center,
they've
been doing content trainings and that sort of thing.
That's right.
Yes, I think we've long said it. When I'm banked up, I lose my liberty, not my humanity.
Indeed.
I think we must always be very watchful of that. Who was it that said that? A society, how any society treats its prisoners, that is an index of its humanity.
Indeed.
That was an extraordinary, I can't remember, was it Sheridan, one of those English writers, very, very interesting there. Sure. So this is it. Prison, no, it's not simply to reform them. There's punishment. You've done something wrong, society wants to punish you.
Right.
And also it wants to prevent you from doing it again. That's what matters. It's just that the idea is that whilst you are there serving time, can we train you in something so that when you get out, when you gain your freedom, you can be engaged in legal, productive activity.
Indeed.
And that sort of thing. And it's a good thing. I've heard that maybe culinary skills.
Well, indeed, Chef Bojang went to some of them wanted to be chefs.
Exactly.
And
so let's start doing that and see if the recidivism rate would drop. We know that most criminals are recidivists. Immediately they go out, they return. So let's see how much we can do about that by providing these things. And we have to be honest about it. Just mentioning it, fine, but the structures must be in place and these things actually happen.
Indeed, indeed. Thank you for that. Thank you. Story number 8, I know we're running out of time. PURA, the Public Utilities Regulatory Authority, and its Senegal counterpart signed an MOU recently to do with digital cooperation. Have a look, have a listen.
Regulators are facing increasingly complex cross-border challenges driven by digital transformation. Issues like roaming, spectrum management, cybersecurity, consumer protection, e-commerce and digital services require cooperation rather than isolated action, especially for the Gambia and Senegal, where cross-border movement for trade, work and family is constant. PURA officials say the partnership comes at a crucial time as it continues to strengthen its regulatory framework and modernize its oversight of electronic communications and postal services. For consumers and businesses on both sides of the border, the agreement could help create a more coordinated approach to issues that affect everyday life, from mobile connectivity and roaming to the safety and reliability of digital services. A key outcome of the agreement is the establishment of the PURA RRTP Regulatory Cooperation Forum. The forum will serve as the principal platform for coordinating, monitoring and reviewing cooperation activities between the two institutions.
You're watching this and you're thinking, yeah, but what's it got to do with me? Well, Mr. Mboj, free roaming is one of the things, for up to 30 days, free. And then you can also pay the kind of local rates for voice, SMS and data without having to change your SIM card. So those are some of the small, but actually quite, I'm not even sure they're small, they're quite significant, just given the way that so many of us use our mobile phones these days when we get around. The one that did make me smile was that it was they were also going to help the Gambia with its postal services development. I thought, what postal services development? Somebody's having a laugh here. We don't have one. But, you know, broader digital economy, and then, of course, you know, the citizen, as I said, we're asking, well, what's in it for me? So I guess there's quite a bit.
But this is the relationship between the two countries. I know people, once in a while, they have to go to Senegal because they've got family there, and you've got Senegalese who will come here. So there's a way in which this could be win-win situation. I understand that they formed the forum,
that's
a regulatory cooperation forum. So this would be addressing how to coordinate. And in this age of this digital world, I mean, what do borders mean? So you have to, governments must work together. You know what I mean? You don't have much say in the matters, really. So it just depends on those corporations, coordinations that work, and the dysfunctional ones, those that do not work. But you got to have cooperation, coordination of one sort or another.
Sure, indeed.
Really?
Absolutely. And just for, this was also something that came up in the ECOWAS meeting, by the way. This whole thing, that why is it that people are still having to get different tariffs just because they move? That should have been wiped out a long time ago, and it hasn't been.
Absolutely.
Sure.
So nice.
So good one. We'll be keeping an eye on that. Story number 9, our penultimate story. At the top of the program, I said, you know, the Day of the Seafarer to us was more than just another UN or IOM day. It had a lot of significance for us because we import quite a lot of stuff. Have a look, have a listen.
Behind everything we rely on, from food, fuel, medicine, and everyday goods, are people working at sea, often far from home and family. This year's theme, Carrying the World Trade, Carrying the Risks, feels especially significant. Across the world, too many seafarers are sailing through areas affected by conflict and geopolitical tension. Many face long periods at sea, uncertainty about when they will return home, and limited communications with their families, all while operating in dangerous waters. Seafarers should never become unintended victims of wider geopolitical conflict. Whether in the Red Sea, the Black Sea, the Strait of Hormuz, or other challenging regions, we must remember that every ship carries more than cargo. It carries people. People with families waiting for them at home, spending long months at sea in isolation, fatigue, and the stress of operating in unpredictable conditions while continuing to deliver the goods, energy, and supplies that the whole world rely upon.
For the Gambia, maritime transport remains a key link to international markets, underscoring the importance of the people who keep vessels operating and cargo moving.
They keep vessels operating and cargo moving. As I said, we depend quite a lot on imports in the Gambia. And that was one of the reasons why we wanted to do the story, because to us it wasn't just another day. It actually is one that we've seen the problems when, you know, Straits of Hormuz. I remember people gathering around my laptop for me to show them where it was, because they'd been hearing so much about it. Where is it and why is it such a contentious place? So, you know, now everybody knows exactly where it is, because things were happening that were impacting us, and it wasn't at some, you know, remove. We were told that, oh, you probably go to the market now to buy something, and they'll tell you, oh, Straits of Hormuz. But on a serious note, you know, this is why we wanted to do and kind of recognize the Day of the Seafarer 2026.
Absolutely. 80% of global trade is transported by sea, isn't it?
Yeah,
and with us, I think, what was it, 90% of what we consume, really, we have to get, we import all of that. And the port of Banjul, and now we're thinking of building another one, aren't we?
That's
the
right, the Sanyang.
one. That tells you the importance of it all to us, given what we just said, that we import most of what we eat. So this is the key. At moments like this, days like this, then you begin to think, these things are actually important. See how linked they are. Can you imagine without seafarers? If you had a seafarer strike,
can you imagine?
Can you imagine what would happen? So that's how important it is for us. And maybe find the seafarers, but can we include fishermen?
Well, there's a
you know what I mean?
Yeah, quite.
Some even might say marine engineers.
Well,
doesn't have to be there. Sort of port workers.
That's right. I'm assuming they might have their own day. I'm not sure.
I suppose so. But it's the whole ecology.
Yeah, quite. Of people who are
different parts,
linked
chain,
to
the links. That's
to
make all of these.
Now, that's a good point, and I hope the UN folks are watching. Thank you for that, Mr. Mboju. And that takes us to our final story, and it also takes us to the United Kingdom. The Prime Minister, Sir Keir Starmer, announced that he was stepping down. Why? Has he upset somebody? It seems he's upset his own party. Have a look, have a listen.
I want in 5 or 10 years this to be a better country. Living standards are better. People feel their schools are better, their hospitals are better. They've got a better chance in life. You know, the infrastructure is better. That we've got, you know, a real plan for energy of the future. These big changes that, you know, if we get it right, you'll be able to look back on and say, that really did change the country.
The question my party is asking now is whether I am best placed to lead us into the next general election. I have heard the answer of my parliamentary party to that question, and I accept that answer with good grace. Every decision I've taken has been about putting the country I love first. That is why I will resign as leader of the Labour Party. I have spoken to His Majesty the King this morning to inform him of my decision. And when I leave the biggest job in the country, I shall spend more time on the most important job, being the best husband I can to my fantastic wife Vic, who has been a rock by my side through good times and bad, and being the best dad I can to my beautiful children, who are my pride and my joy.
I wanted to show you that politicians are human beings. The emotion there, the crack in his voice. I watched the whole thing live, and I thought we have to bring this story, Mr. Mboju. You know, less than 2 years since a landslide election, because they started suffering in by-elections and in the polls, stabbed him not even in the back, in the front, and told him, you know, sling your hook, go. You know, we won't win another election with you in charge. And yeah, July of 2024 was when they won the election, so it's not even 2 years yet, and he's off.
Yes, quite baffling what's going on now. In fact, the sort of instability really began with Brexit.
It did.
You've seen the Tories, how many
times
times
they've 10 years of Brexit.
Absolutely.
Yeah,
how many times they've changed leadership. Now Labour has had the habit. So maybe fundamentally there's something going on. So with us, we talked about left and right. Now that's gone. Now it's like woke and anti-woke. So it's a new ball game now. Labour, Conservatives, they're chasing reform, aren't they?
So
they've shifted.
And there was a reason why I played, and yes, that was Gary Neville, the former footballer that he was speaking to at the beginning of that clip, and there was a reason where I played that clip, because if you look at what he had as his ambitions for the country, what has happened and has led to his downfall had nothing with that to do with that.
At all.
It wasn't even a thing then. And so Reform and others who've gone really to the extreme right, anti-immigrant, anti-this, anti-woke, as they love to brand themselves, that wasn't even a consideration. He didn't even mention it. And if anybody doesn't believe me, they can go and see the whole 30 minutes of that on YouTube. It's on YouTube. It didn't even come into the equation. And yet that is what has ended up destabilizing his party and leading to him having to resign.
Absolutely. So it is important for us here, really, to understand what's going on around the world. You know what I mean?
Indeed.
We negotiate with these people. So politically, what's going on there? So now this one is gone. And in fact, with Starmer, Labour had really lost its identity because it was chasing those being attracted to reform. So reforms just change the whole landscape. You know what I mean? So both parties, the major parties, the traditional parties, are now outdoing themselves. You know, chasing that one.
And you mentioned Brexit, and before Reform It was UKIP that
Yes,
changed
that was UKIP,
the nature
yeah,
of the Conservative
absolutely,
Party.
yes.
You know, they were
UKIP
started
became
chasing.
Reform.
It became Reform, essentially. Yes, right. So, yeah.
So where is it going? This woke, anti-woke. This is a new language for some of us.
Sure.
You used to, who grew up on left and right. You knew, but now you do not know. So what next? How significant would it be, sort of internationally? And it's not just in Britain, seen it in France,
Yes,
Germany,
yeah,
everywhere.
Netherlands, yeah.
Even Trumpism is something like that.
Yeah, quite.
So that's it. They've got a new scapegoat, as it were.
Yeah, quite.
In the 1930s, I think it was the Jews.
Yeah, quite.
Now the scapegoat is immigrants everywhere.
Everywhere,
So
including in South Africa.
that's it, including in South Africa. So we're
Yeah.
going back to that 1930s moment, I
Sure.
suppose.
Yeah.
How far would it go? I wouldn't go as far as to say that it might lead us toward Hitler, the Nazis.
Quite.
But this is very interesting as well, what we're doing again.
Yes, yes, we're back there again. Thank you for that, Mr. Mbooj, and that's a beautiful point to end it on. And it just leaves for me to say to you, the viewer, thank you for watching. So, until we come your way again next week, goodbye.